Welcome in to Can We Just Talk, the podcast where it doesn't matter if you're living under a rock. If you do, that's all right. We'll fill you in on what you missed from this past week's biggest developments, stories, and headlines. It has been a crazy, crazy week. We have done a full episode worth of coverage of what is happening in the nation's capital. If that's what you've come here to listen to tonight, we've got good news. It's already up for you. Feel free to check it out. It is a special edition episode called Chaos in the Capitol. It's available everywhere, YouTube, Spotify, as well as Apple Podcasts. Tonight, we will be talking a little bit about what's going on in the nation's capital, but we've got a lot of other stories to get to as well, including on the docket tonight. Joe Biden announcing he will take a train, per usual, as he's done so many times in his past career, to the inauguration. We've got a racist letter that is appearing all over campus on Duke that is getting a lot of alumni very upset about what is taking place at their alma mater. It's a new year, so that means there is the new winter Starbucks menu. We've got a lot of heat coming around that. Some people happy, some people not. And then we've also got some pretty interesting information about the viewer preference, especially when it came to considering where they watch the coverage for the recent riots that were taking place inside the nation's capital between CNN and Fox News. So we'll get to that later at the end of this episode. But guys, joining me tonight, we've got Samantha Dolph making her first appearance on Polar Media and Can We Just Talk? Austin DiSavino back per usual for the 13th episode in a row. Or 14th, and then Jacob Berg also coming in, I believe, his 14th episode in a row as well. So we are missing a couple people tonight, but they will be back next week, so no worries on that.
And they are okay.
Yeah.
You made it sound like we're like missing them and they'll be back.
Yeah, we're not.
Everyone's okay. They're just not here.
They won't be with us tonight.
It's a chaotic.
Chris did not fall and break his hip. He is okay. We promise.
He's actually on a plane.
So. He wishes he was on a plane. This has been the worst part of COVID-19 has been he can't go on planes anymore, or he can't go sit at the airport and watch the planes take off. But
I like to do it with a hot cup of Joe.
We will jump right in tonight, get to the big story. A bit questioning today. A lot of people wondering, some about how the 2021 inauguration for the presidential election, what that will look like. It's been very hot, what has been happening in the Capitol. Like I said, if you want more information on what exactly has happened, our thoughts on what it means for the nation's future, you can check that out. Like I said, we had the full episode. But this story coming out today about how Joe Biden will arrive to the presidential inauguration. And most of the time you think about how the presidents travel, they move with the Secret Service. They move, in armored vehicles. They move by helicopter. But Joe Biden has a history of using the train. He went back and forth to work when he was working in the nation's capital for many, many years as he traveled all the way from
Wilmington, Delaware.
Yeah, from Delaware into the nation's capital by train.
It's not too far of a ride, but
it's just interesting to see a guy like him still doing that. So I have to believe he will be one of the first presidents in a long time traveling to the presidential inauguration by train. And now the questions are, is it safe? Because we've seen what's happened. It's going to be heavily secured. You almost have to imagine, is that train going to be a rider for one of his people? So I'd love to get your thoughts on this.
I mean, yeah, it's probably going to be a train for one, but also it's like hearkening back to the wild, wild West days. Are we going to have like some crazy train overtake?
We're not enemies.
Troy's playing videos.
Free the Proud and the Marine. That was given an advertisement.
Yeah, they're recruiting you. But like, are we gonna have some like wild, wild West kind of train takeover? They're gonna put a tree on the track. What I'm interested in seeing is, or knowing, and we will never know this, but I imagine everything the president does, they get briefed on, what are all your options and which one is the safest and which one is the worst. And like, I have to imagine that no one recommended taking a train, but I understand, like, if this is what he's done and it's sentimental, and it said in this article, I think over 1,800 train trips or 8,000. I know it had an 8 in it. Over 8,000 train trips in his time as a senator and as vice president. That's actually pretty cool. Like
his nickname is Amtrak Joe.
What a nickname.
There's a lot of worse nicknames we've heard about him.
There's a lot of better ones too.
Well, yeah, it's not bad. He likes his Amtraks. And it's crazy to think he took the Amtrak as the vice president.
Yeah.
That's kind of nuts.
Right.
And now he's going to be taking it on his way. He can't be doing this when he's president, right?
We're not. Well, he's not going to be going back to Wilmington.
Still, though.
He's going to be living at the White House.
Do you think when he's traveling, he likes his trains?
He likes his trains and Chris likes his planes.
Two old men really knocking it up together. Chris, and he's not even here to defend himself tonight, but he's listening on his way in tomorrow, so he'll be hearing this. He'll probably turn it off right about now. But yes, Chris.
I'm like, how do I turn this off?
Chris Sakonis, Joe Biden, both in their late 70s. One likes trains, one likes planes. But Sammy, thoughts on this, and then we'll get to Jacob.
As someone who really enjoys taking the train, I don't blame the guy.
Yeah.
You know, I love the experience of having the train. It's also really like peaceful, you know, especially if you're in like one of the quiet cars.
Yeah.
And I don't mind it. You know, I've taken the train from Villanova to Rutgers University, and then we made the switch I made the connection to NZ Transit. That was pretty fun. I also have taken the Amtrak up to Boston and
Cool.
going through Connecticut and seeing, it's so serene. I can read on the train. I don't know if he's going to be reading or what he's going to be doing, but
It's got a busy day.
it's a fun time.
Yeah.
Probably a lot to
He's
think
probably
about.
going to listen to the podcast.
I would assume
Who is this Chris Boyd? Why do we both like our funny modes of transportation?
Joe, if you're listening, hey.
Hey, Joe,
That's your message.
that's your message.
Hey,
If he does
I hope
listen,
you're doing well, you know?
enjoy your train
Good
ride.
luck.
Anything off the trolley?
Listen,
Jacob,
stop.
On thoughts on this? Pro
Chocolate
train,
frogs.
pro train.
Two pumpkin pasties.
Yeah, I'm pro train. Actually, I'm pretty pro train. I think trains are a pretty efficient way to get somewhere.
Yeah.
I wish we had more train tracks in America.
Oh,
I wish that.
You wish we had
But-
more train tracks?
Yes, I wish you had more. I wish it was easier to travel by train
oh,
because it's like, it's a less stressful experience than going through TSA and worrying about flights and da. And you can still kind of work and get things done. It's not like as nerve-wracking as like being in the air on a plane. It does take a little longer, but hey, it's better than driving. But I don't know. I'd say like getting back to this. I know Troy, you talked about kind of safety. I don't really know like if there's any sort of difference for like COVID safety, but I think just as like physical safety, I think that this is a little bit of a statement. Presidents, leaders, they definitely don't want to look scared, and I see that in multiple leaders, and I think Joe Biden is going to come out here and say, you know what. We saw what happened in the Capitol. We saw, some of the, violent acts that are occurring. He's going to come out and he's going to try to look like, I'm above it all. I'm not scared. I'm going to go. I'm going to take my train ride, do what I do every day, and just try to keep on keeping on. And I think that's kind of some of the maybe subliminal messaging kind of under that move.
Before we get to Austin, he has a story about his experience with trains. I think that was kind of what he ran on, right? He wanted to be the average Joe. He wanted to be the guy people could relate with. And him taking a train instead of a helicopter, it really speaks to that. He is the average Joe president. It's kind of refreshing after some of the antics we've seen in the past. But, he's going to take the train there. They're saying that's how they're going to kick off the festivities. Hopefully the train is not delayed or is behind schedule.
it will not be delayed, but definitely.
Amtrak will have
guarantee you
some.
that.
Wait, Jacob, have you ridden this train? Because I know you commuted back and forth on a daily basis when you were in DC last summer working. Have you been on this exact train?
No, the Amtrak doesn't it's different. The Amtrak is different than like the
It's
Metro
longer routes
in the DC area. You can only get on the Amtrak from
Yeah.
certain spots. So
Well,
Yeah.
a little bit different, but
Austin has been on this train.
Yeah, I've taken this one, but I do, before I tell this story, because it's like the weirdest thing I've ever seen, but I'm just worried after the events that happened this week. And again, listen to, what was the name of the episode?
Chaos in the Capitol.
Chaos and wow, great name.
I know, right?
I'm just worried about after the insurrection and the riots and the domestic terrorists. I really hope they lock down all the train lines, but also train tracks are federal property. So if you go on the train tracks and you get caught there, that's a federal crime.
Yep.
Getting on the train tracks. Anyway, it was 2013. I was working in the city at the time, and I still work in the city, but not now
Different city.
because it's COVID.
Oh wait.
New York City. And we had a business meeting in DC for the day, right? So I took the train down to DC, and on the way back, part of the tracks run through just like that's the cool thing about trains is you're going through backyards, you're just going through like just areas that are not roads. So we're going through Philly and we're going really slow through Philly, and it's like all the row homes and stuff like that. So the backyards are the size of this basement down here. So not very big, maybe like 20 feet long by 10 feet wide. And in one of the fenced in backyards, there was a horse. Like, I'm not joking, like a full horse tied up in some random person's backyard in Philly. But I'm on a train. I'm not like on a car. I can't stop and look. And I'm just like, you know, like when you're on a train, you're like zoning out, listening to music. And I'm just like, oh, that's a horse. Holy fuck, that was a horse. What was that? And it was just a random horse. Like somebody's like, yo, dude, I got this horse out back, man. I got it down at Wawa. I traded a guy a bag of Ying Wings, and he gave me a horse. And like, it's like, how does that happen? They just have a horse in your backyard in Philly.
It's always disturbing when you see horses in places you don't expect.
No,
I agree.
It's always, and Jacob, you know exactly what I'm thinking.
We got some horse stories.
Yeah, real quickly, me and Jacob were one time hanging out on the driveway one day, and this is the old house. And we're just, we were shooting a basketball or something, and
I think we were playing soccer volleyball, actually.
Something like that. And all of a sudden, there's a horse running across the front yard. And it's a rural area, but there's not horses running around freely. And we're like, what the? Like, I thought it was a deer at first out of my peripheral. And I just turned, and it's a horse, like stallion,
1,500 pounds.
I was like, what the fuck is going on? And our neighbor has a horse, but that's fenced in.
Yeah.
And we're like, do we chase it?
I'm so afraid.
We tried to gather the horse so it didn't run into the road, and then it kind of got us trapped. We had to go stand in the middle by a tree, and it ran around us.
Oh my god!
They were in like a weeping willow tree.
Yeah.
We were like underneath the branches, and the horse just going all the way around the outside.
We were saved because our 85-year-old neighbor came out. And she calmed the horse.
Susan came out.
Somebody came with some carrots.
It doesn't matter. She's a horse whisperer. It doesn't matter. But yes, horses, unexpected areas, even on a train, not good. I don't think when he's taking the
horses are big, man.
He won't be seeing horses. They won't allow that funny business going on.
They're gonna. I would imagine if you live on that train line, they're gonna be doing sweeps. Because like when Trump was in town, I would drive by his golf course, and like when he was in town, there was Secret Service on the side of the highway. Yeah. There were signs with like no stopping for miles. Remember we took that back road and we came up on all the Secret Service by accident.
Yep.
And it's like, oh, we're just taking a back road, and
it says no driving.
And it's like no through traffic, and I'm like, yeah, but it's a dirt road, no one's back here. And then all of a sudden, it's like every 30 feet, it's like no stopping, no stopping, no stopping signs. And there was like all these SUVs, and we just drove right by and left. And I was like, okay.
We probably shouldn't do that again. But
I used to do that a lot.
Sliding away from the way President-elect, soon-to-be President Joe Biden will be coming in. Some other news coming out. I don't know if you guys saw this. I just sent it over to you. But there is a very ill-worded letter that was published recently in a Duke magazine, Duke University. And some alumni are very upset about what is going on here. I'll kind of just recount exactly the part that has upset some of the readers. I'll pull that up. But before I get into it, you know, this was posted, and almost immediately people were outraged about what's going on. So this is what was said, and this is what's being flagged.
Jeez.
Groups of color are better off when their men marry the women that they have babies with and stay around to raise them. When they avoid drugs, stay out of trouble, and prefer a paycheck to a handout. And when they realize that acting white by studying is not a bad thing.
Hold on. Just one thing. He did say groups of any color.
Yes.
Groups of color.
So he said groups of any color would be better off.
I think the part that really took a lot of offense was the when they realized that acting white by studying is not a bad thing.
Took offense to that. I mean, the whole thing this is terrible.
So some of the remarks that come out from some alum. So this is some of the words. I'm completely disgusted and disappointed that Duke Alumni Magazine has published these racist and violent letters, alumni Sabrina Davis stated. She stated this publication of the letters is all in the context of the coup in our nation's capital when a mob of President Trump supporters stormed the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. on Wednesday. Davis, known as the Riot, an insurrection rooted into white supremacy, hatred, and violence. So This is a very bad timed letter to come out. I mean, it's hard to believe this made it past an editor. The fact that this was able to be published, and it's awful. Duke has had to apologize since then. This has been pulled, but I mean, it made it past an editor. I don't think that editor is going to have much of a career after this, especially.
Everyone should be gone. I mean, this is terrible. Like this, what's the point of the letter too? Like, what was the letter even about?
Yeah. Do we
So the letter is titled "It's Not All Racism," and basically it's not very long actually. If our viewers want to go out and see it, you can go and read the letter pretty easily from dukemagazine.duke.edu. It's pretty much right in the front. But yeah, basically they include a couple letters from some of their alumni. This one's, like I said, it's titled "It's Not All Racism." And I'd say, just to quickly summarize what he says in the letter, he makes kind of like two key points, I think. So the first one, Troy read you that quote, and he goes on to kind of say how, negative culture, how he thinks negative culture hurts the Black communities. Or I think that's what he's insinuating. And then the second point that he makes is that abusing benefits and having what he views as kind of like a bad protest where, it results in like looting or vandalism or injuries. So he thinks that both that and abusing benefits kind of hurt some of the progress that have already been made towards equality.
And that's the thing. As a white person, it's not up to him to determine the status of progress. It's up to those that are the minority, that are the beaten down, that are the suppressed, that are the oppressed. It's not up to us as white people to determine the progress status. Like our job is to work and be anti-racist and to work towards full equity and equality. And like, I'm just reading this letter, and this is like how this got past the editor. Like, all these people need to be fired, and like absolutely fired.
And it comes from someone who graduated Duke back in 1961, when Duke University was still an all-white school, and he was openly criticizing the justice protests that were taking place this summer. I just don't know how this person was still having a voice in what was taking place. And you're right, like there's an editor for a reason. There's an editor for a reason, that so things like this don't get said and people can take offense to this. It's just
his sentence here. I benefited from what is now called white privilege, but now that I and others get it, the constant reminders of our nation's systemic racism are growing wearisome. Because you're tired, it's becoming, because you're tired of hearing it.
They really have no right to be weary.
White people do not deserve the patience that people of color have for the racism that is spewed their ways. We do not deserve the patience. Like, this is disgusting. And like this, what the saddest part is that when this guy wrote it, he was like, I am, as the young kids now think, woke, and I see my white privilege, but now that I see it, everyone needs to just get over it. Like, this dude is terrible.
You can't possibly make an opinion like this and say something like this, and by comparing what is right, by saying what is right is acting white. Doing things that are right compares to the actions of acting white.
That itself is racism, is assuming that the goal for everyone is to be
blatant racism.
The majority. Yeah.
Because it falls under the idea of passing to be white. Yeah. Like, this is not a new concept. This has been an ideology of what racism is in many forms since this man was in college back in the 1960s. Passing for white, acting white. It's almost the exact same thing. And the fact that he's mentioning this paints him as arguably the worst type of racist you can be, in the current day society, by pretending like you're not racist, but having these opinions, having a voice in the media and saying these types of things, by making racism sound and appear okay. Sammy, your thoughts on this? You go to Villanova.
Yes.
Duke is a rival in basketball.
So I do attend Villanova University. It is a primarily white institution, and because of the sort of voice that the Black Lives Matter movement has had in June, a lot of things came out from our administration about the anti-racist movements and specifically lifting up Black students and POC students at Villanova from the administration. I know that a lot of work was done by them, and also a lot of it was driven by the students. But it's sad because there was a page on Instagram, I believe it's still up and it's public. It's called Black Villanova, and a lot of students, people of color, specifically Black students, were sharing their stories. And just reading them is obviously really heartbreaking to know that it happens, especially if around your school, either I don't experience any of that, obviously, being a white person, or you don't see it as often. And especially in the classroom, it was abhorrent to see the things, especially the professors were saying. And it makes me sad because not only are my fellow students not getting treated the same way, but they're also not feeling safe in a space that is meant to educate them. And we're all supposed to be educated the same. We all got into this university, we all go to the same school, and it sucks that people aren't being treated the same. And I think that a lot needs to be done. And with this coming out from another primarily white institution, it sets a lot of schools back from diversifying, from BIPOCs applying to these schools, and that's just gonna continue because there's not going to be these voices happening, because they're not going to be applying to these schools because they know that they might not even feel safe at these schools because of these things that are happening. So
it's crazy.
It's really disappointing. But like Austin and Troy were saying, the most that we can do as a community is educate ourselves. And I think that ignorance truly does end with education and learning and taking the initiative to learn, and not rely on our fellow BIPOC members to teach us. We need to teach ourselves.
It's scary because you say that, because one thing people should be doing is educate themselves, and the idea of where do you go to educate yourself. Usually a lot of times you see these universities be a place where you can find a lot of good education when it comes to these things. Usually the university communities are places where this idea of progressiveness is more available compared to some other places around the country. And now with articles like this, and it hasn't been retracted yet by Duke, with articles like this out there, people might be seeing this and thinking, oh, this is proper education for how I should be handling these situations. And it's just weird to me. You think about universities, and this is, again, like I said, this is usually where you see progressiveness at its best. That some metro areas as well. But you have things being put out like here, and you can't properly educate yourself now, because now it's like, what should you believe? Because this is obviously not the right way to educate yourself when it comes to racism. And it's just unbelievable. You see something with the university stamp of approval being put out there. And it's Duke University is a very historically white school. It's a very bad look for them. The fact that an editor was able to put this out there, and now a lot of alumni are seeing this and seeing how it's representing their school. I
mean, segregation ended less than 60 years ago.
When this man who wrote this was at Duke, it was still all white.
It was all white. So this just goes to show how far we as white people, like Sammy, what you're saying is right. It is not on Black people or Black indigenous people of color to educate us. That's on us. We are born into the privilege of being white, and we need to work to undoctrinate ourselves from what we are born into and just taught through society and culture. And it's just sad that this guy was so motivated about this, that this is what he wrote about. And it's like, if you look at what happened in the Capitol, like if that doesn't clearly define how rampant white privilege is and how rampant differential treatment from our supposed protectors in the police departments and in agencies like that is, and the different reaction. And this is what this guy is writing about. It's disgusting. And like, again, that's a really easy take to have. Like, anyone that reads this that's sane is gonna be like, that's terrible. So like, we're not saying anything crazy here, but at the same time, the people that let this happen,
Yeah.
like, what are you thinking? And you said the university is not retracting this. All they said was, we're sorry, we didn't publish it with context. It's like,
there's no context that makes this.
what is the context? Like, this is racist.
It's blatant.
That's
It's the blatant idea of ethnocentrism that it's at the center. It's the idea that what you do is correct by acting white is the correct way to act, and that people should be acting the same way as you.
Yeah.
You know, the way this man is acting is not the way anyone should be acting. By believing that acting white is the correct way to be doing things. I mean, it's
Someone
just,
pick up their grandpa.
it's awful.
Like,
It's
going
awful.
crazy
And
here.
take away this man should not have access to be writing for a magazine.
This guy absolutely eats tapioca pudding every single day and uses a pen that has a feather on it. And the pen with the feather needs to be taken away.
No feathers for him.
No feather.
No more quills.
I want to move over to
Wait, Troy, just one thing before we go on, if you don't mind.
Okay.
I just wanted to go kind of into some of the kind of what he was saying in the article and you know, kind of talk to some of my thoughts, some of the possible kind of rebuttals, if we're just going to, you know, kind of try to take this at face value and try to say, here's why we disagree. So I'll kind of give my thoughts on it, and maybe you guys can chime in if you like. But so first here, getting back to kind of his first idea, and that was the quote that Troy read for us, kind of how negative culture, you know, hurts the Black communities. And they're saying, you know, he was assuming that, I guess he didn't specifically write it, but it seems like he's insinuating that, you know, white families tend to stay together and avoid drugs and stay out of trouble, while, you know, people of color, other races, you know, don't do so. And I would say, just from a culture standpoint, I think any anthropologist would tell you that it's really tough to judge and compare different cultures. And that's one of the things, like he's definitely making kind of a big assumption here, that is like rooted, and that applies to most people of the Black community or of communities of other races. And I'd also say that, you know, when you're thinking about culture is formed over time, right? And I am quite sure that Black culture has been affected by slavery, lasting racism, and just, you know, things along those lines in the communities that they're in. Obviously, that's going to have an impact on their culture, on the way that they do things. So I think that to me kind of negates this idea that you know, a culture is to blame and the people are 100% at fault for their own culture, if that makes any sense.
You're right. And their culture was absolutely stripped from them. And again, like what you're saying, Troy, this is like ethnocentricity at its finest. The CDC did a study in 2013 on parents' involvement, and the CDC report proves that Black dads are the most involved with their families. So like, all this rhetoric is just hate-based and misinformed. And Jacob, I think you had beautiful points. Everyone had really good points. It's just sad. But also, like, see how upset we are? We're white. Yeah. Like, this isn't about us. We're white and we're upset. And this is not an isolated incident. Imagine every single day this is what you're faced with. Like, again, we don't deserve the patience that Black people and Black indigenous people of color have for what's going on. And it's just we need to be better. We need to get better, because this is who we are.
It's embarrassing for Duke. It's very embarrassing for Duke.
It's very sad.
And then with the second point here, he also mentioned how kind of, you know, abusing benefits and some of the protests that had, looting or vandalism or injuries, how he was saying, how that kind of takes back at accomplishments that were made towards equality and kind of like sheds a negative light on it. And, to a certain extent, I do think that I agree there that, obviously things along those lines will shed a negative light. But what I think like kind of isn't stated is that I really don't think that those occurrences are as common as people with this opinion will say they do. Like, kind of like these type of instances aren't the commonality, aren't what people are going for, and to hurt the whole by saying actions of a few like people is I don't think that's appropriate.
Also, Jacob, to that point, like this guy, get off your high horse, because I hate to break it to you, there were a lot of white people out there on the streets too, when a lot of these riots were taking place, or whatever you want to call it. There was protests that turned violence, or looting may have occurred. There was a lot of white people out there too. So in this case, acting white also involves being in the riots and possibly looting and burning. And this was happening. This is also happening for a much more justifiable reason that had taken place in the Capitol in a couple days ago. Well, this was in response to a police brutality that was then further instigated because their response with peaceful protesting had turned into more violence from police brutality. So this is nowhere, you can't make a comparison of what is happening in the Capitol right now is what had happened over the summer. Also to that point, let's not act like there's no children out there that haven't had their parent leave, that haven't had their white father leave. Because that idea, like you said, is just pure racism that is being pushed and pushed and pushed by people thinking that they are better than another race. Like there are plenty of children out there, white children out there that have not had a father in their life, and their father has also been white. So acting white is just this guy saying that he thinks his culture, his race is better than someone else because his immediate life, his immediate family, his immediate experiences are not what he believes the entire rest of the country experiences.
If you look at any of the violence that stemmed from that happened during some of the protests last summer and spring, if you look hard enough, you will find the organizers of all of those protests up front proactively dissuading those acts of violence and destruction and retroactively condemning them, right? But again, we are human beings and we have the ability to look and ask second level questions. So if that is happening, if people are destroying their own communities, that's because people are doing that because there's nothing left to do. There's no other way to get people to listen. And again, there is violence and destruction is not okay. But it's our job to see that, know that it's not okay, but ask, why is this happening? Like the why behind it has to be more important than a target being destroyed. Like the systematic oppression of Black people and Indigenous people of color by police and police brutality has to be more important than a target getting its windows broken in. And again, please do not come at me and compare a target being broken into or destruction to insurrection in the nation's capital. And I will say this, violence is wrong, destruction is wrong, but that's not the point of these protests. But we as human beings should have the ability to ask those second level questions as to why this is happening. Why are these people so angry and so upset? And we should listen to them.
If you want more talk on what has happened, like I said before, on what is happening in the nation's capital, we had the special episode, Chaos in the Capitol, a special edition of Can We Just Talk, with myself, Jacob Berg, Joey Block, former news director for WRSU, and Chris Sakonis, also a news advocate for WRSU. He is on that as well. We do a lot of talk about that. So, there's plenty of conversation to happen there. We'll talk a little bit more about it later in this episode as well, but check that out because we dive much more in deep of what the recent events have looked like. And I'd like to just slide over and move on so we don't run out of time.
Awkward transition time.
So, also another big important story, not on the same level, but Starbucks has a new menu. They are continuing their push. We have a Starbucks expert here in Sammy Dollar. But winter 2021 menu, there's a theme involved with this one. Some of the new items included are the pistachio lattes, the honey almond milk cold brew, and more vegetarian food options. So as I said there, the vegetarian idea is being pushed heavily. A lot of these featured drinks that are coming out now are more along the lines of containing almond milk compared to
plant-based too.
Yeah, plant-based compared to dairy. Sammy, you use almond milk for all your drinks at Starbucks. I just don't see the point, but that is a personal taste.
Yeah.
But some of these sound good, and they're saying the pistachio latte could give the pumpkin spice latte a run for its money. So that's high praise for arguably the most successful coffee product of the past century. I honestly kind of want to try the honey almond milk cold brew. I'm not a big fan of cold brew, but
cold brew's great. It's like sweet,
it's a little
smooth,
I don't know,
velvety.
There's the aftertaste I'm just not a huge fan of. I love coffee. I love iced coffee. I love hot coffee. There's something about it at the end I'm not a huge fan of, but we'll see. Maybe I'll give it a try.
Because you're a lizard person.
I wonder if this honey almond milk is an isolated thing that can be added to other drinks, because I love almond milk.
Oh, so you think the almond milk is I thought it was just a honey almond milk cold brew.
So
you think it's honey almond milk?
I don't know. That's what I want to know. But I think Starbucks has done an amazing job of allowing its customers, its guests, to create their own drinks. And I know I do this all the time, and I add different flavors and stuff to all the base drinks. And that's why if you go into any Starbucks, you're going to see like 5 things on the menu up above, because it's so intuitive on the app. You can find recipes
like going to a
online.
Bar,
it's amazing.
It's coffee.
And I love that they continue to add these things and continue to add like integral sort of flavors into their menu, because I think it really diversifies them. And I think the addition of matcha and more teas to Starbucks really has drawn me there. I'm a big tea drinker. I don't like coffee much, but the matcha, I probably get one like twice a week. It's so good.
Twice a week.
At school, I'll probably
get it
like
5 times a week.
Nothing wrong with that.
But
I have a question.
Okay.
In case you don't know, almond milk is extra at Starbucks.
It is 70 cents.
Yeah, because
70 cents extra. I've also recently found out for certain items, half and half is 70 cents extra as well. Compared
they don't do half and half though.
They don't do light cream. They do half and half.
Dunkin' doesn't do half and half.
They do light cream. Yes.
I like cream better than half and half. I'm not gonna lie.
I want to wonder, for these specialty drinks, you're familiar. You order them all the time. Do they charge you extra for something that is part of the name? Do I have to pay 70 cents extra for almond milk in my honey almond milk cold brew?
Probably not, which is interesting.
I can pull it up.
Which is interesting, but I know that any drink. So if I get
I don't think it's
an iced, if I get an iced green tea matcha latte, the milk that is added is 2%, and I replace it with almond milk, and it adds 70 cents. I also put vanilla syrup in, and that is, each pump is worth like 10 cents or something like that. So it's like 40 cents. So the drink altogether is like $5 for like a grande, which is ridiculous. But it's so good. And I just customized the whole thing. Yeah. And I basically just made it myself. But yes.
Do you order on the app? Or do you do that
I do. And here's, and I do it on the app. And only because I get the stars and it's just easier. But I think the reason, so they used to not have.
Today was a double star day.
I know, I didn't capitalize. So they used to just have the half and half out. So you would just say, can I get an iced coffee, leave room for cream? And that was the baseline of what, $3.95. But now you're adding 70 cents to your drinks, $4 because they don't have the cream out, which is interesting. And I don't think that Starbucks is doing that intentionally. I just think it's
I think safety reasons.
Yeah.
Jacob, thoughts on this? I don't think I've ever seen you drink Starbucks in your entire life.
I think I've had it like once or twice.
You're more of a McCafe guy, aren't you?
McCafe is great.
I'm not a big coffee person, but when I get coffee, I definitely don't go with like extra flavors. I'll just get like a normal coffee flavor, or maybe a little hazelnut.
Well, Chris, who's usually remembers when the Great Depression, you get a tin cup and
Yeah.
black Java juice. That's what he calls it.
Chris's
He called
favorite donut is the plain donut, the original.
No, it was when he first had it, it was just donut.
It was
They only
just-
had one donut.
Can I get a donut, please?
No,
Please, fancy powders.
no fan. Yeah, he remembers when the chocolate frosted donut was invented. But Jacob, what were you saying? What's your favorite?
I said I just go with normal coffee flavors, maybe a little hazelnut. I don't really go out with like all these weird honey stuff. Definitely not pistachio.
Let's not use hurtful words like weird.
Weird.
Okay.
No.
I love seasonal flavors. Like
Agreed.
I love them. They immerse me into the experience. And like I like Dunkin' Donuts more than Starbucks. I do enjoy Starbucks. It's not, I like Dunkin' Donuts this much. I like Starbucks this much. When I go to Dunkin', I'm getting iced coffee. I'm getting like a mocha. I'm getting a pumpkin. I'm getting a vanilla. Most of the time it's just plain. When I go to Starbucks, I am there for the flavors.
Yeah, it's
Like,
a treat.
It is a treat, and I'm excited about this pistachio.
I love
and I'm
pistachio.
also-
I love nuts.
Yeah, the nuts. I love nuts. Oh no, it's gonna be clipped up.
Ooh,
Is
and a marker. I didn't even notice.
but
Austin likes nuts.
what I was gonna say is I'm really happy to see there's gonna be more plant-based options.
I agree.
As someone who tries to be as vegetarian and plant-based as possible, I do slip up, as we all do, because we're human. It's going to be better to go and have those options. Like the Impossible breakfast sandwich there, I get that because it's the best tasting
I
sandwich.
want to try it.
It's
It
so
genuinely
good.
looks so good.
It's really good.
Well, did you guys see Starbucks every Monday? Every Monday for the month of January, Starbucks is doing $2 off their vegetarian option.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like
Love
their veggie sandwiches, their
Really?
Impossible sandwiches, they're doing $2 off every Monday with the app.
By the way,
That's great.
during COVID right now, drive-thrus are slammed. If you live in a town where there's a Starbucks, I guarantee the Starbucks line is slammed. I don't life hack, don't go in the drive-thru unless it's
Life
a
hack,
really
use the app and
Use
go
the
pick
app
it up.
and then
Unless
go
you're
pick it up.
super bored and you have nothing to do, go through the drive.
The drive-thru at Starbucks, since they are these handcrafted drinks, if it's like a 4-car drive-thru, that's at least a 25 minutes.
Yeah, but 4 cars, I would do
It
the
is-
drive-thru
it is-
if I saw only 4 cars.
I'm telling
it
you,
goes into Chick-fil-A
I am
sometimes.
telling you, a 4-car line at Starbucks at the drive-thru is like 25 minutes.
Lindy gets
Easily.
so mad at me because when
Easily.
my wife will be, it'll be like it's gonna happen tomorrow morning. I guarantee it. We're gonna wake up and be like, hey, let's go to Starbucks, and she'll be like, all right, I don't want to go inside. I'm not like getting dressed to go inside
Yeah.
Starbucks. We're gonna pull in. The line's gonna be long, and I'm gonna be like, oh, we're going in, and she's gonna be pissed at me because we're gonna go in our pajamas. Or most of the times I park and I go. I just go into the line actually. I don't even
Oh,
order ahead.
Okay.
But
I'm trying to call Lindy down here, but she's not responding at the moment.
did you call
I
her?
texted her, I called her, because at Starbucks, I figured she'll have a say on this
She
one.
didn't.
While we're waiting for Lindy, another resident Starbucks lover,
You can go.
Oh. I'll recommend you my 3 top drinks. If you're a tea drinker, I definitely recommend the matcha. However, the matcha can get a little.
What is matcha, by the way?
Matcha is a green tea, but it is made with, it's not like steeped. It is a powdery drink. So what they do is they'll put the matcha powder in your milk base, either almond milk. I recommend almond milk, even though it is extra. And it should not be 70 cents extra. I think it should be the same price. Put it in the milk. They shake it up. They throw it on ice. And I add vanilla because it's a little sweeter, but don't add too many pumps. So I get an iced matcha latte with almond milk. And for a venti, get 3 pumps of vanilla. For a grande, get 2. You'll love it. It's great. My second drink always is an iced chai latte with almond milk. I think chai is really complemented by almond milk. It's like nutty. It's good. You don't need anything extra in that. Don't add vanilla. Don't add anything. It'll be too sweet. And honestly, it tastes like Christmas year round. My third drink,
Oh, there's a third.
if you're into coffee, I would just get an iced coffee with milk. And the milk is obviously almond milk. Iced coffee with almond milk. And if you're feeling festive, you get pumpkin. I would love to add this honey almond milk. Or if you're feeling a little quirky, you can add a little cold foam. The addition of the cold foam, I think, on Starbucks' menu is really, really
The
important.
cold foams are banging.
It adds a
the
lot.
Irish cream, you gotta try it. Sarah.
I will.
You gotta text me what you think.
The menu.
amazing.
Wendy's asleep. We're recording this at 6:30 at night. She's asleep.
The menu for Starbucks is so confusing to me. And
Why?
I almost worked at Starbucks. I actually applied to be a barista.
It's confusing. It's coffee.
No, it's not. I applied,
It's a lot.
got the job, did my interview, did my paperwork, had my first day, and then I told them I couldn't work anymore.
You did a first day there?
No, I had scheduled my first day.
Wow.
So I had scheduled my training, and then I had
worked
to.
at Dunkin'.
Then I was too busy, and I
For a
was
long
like,
time.
and I'm glad I didn't, because I only order iced coffee, hot coffee. I don't add any sweetener.
Oh,
I don't-
look at me. I'm superior
I don't
to
like-
everyone because I drink just plain coffee. I don't like any
with cream,
flavor.
with cream,
I just like
with
my
cream.
meats unseasoned and no seasoning in my food. Get over yourself,
Troy
okay? You're
likes
not better than
unseasoned
us.
meat.
This is like
You're not
when
better than
we had
us.
first started to do a
I
podcast,
was
we had a
thinking
different idea, and we had this argument before this was ever invented. But
What was the name of we were going to call it?
I was a devil's advocate.
What a terrible name. No, that was a good name.
It's a good name. All right, so yes, Jacob.
Hold on. I want the takes, and Austin, I want to apologize. Your flavors aren't weird. I think that
Jacob.
I'm the weird one. I think that Troy and I are the weird ones to get coffees
agree.
without flavors. And I'm
Inside
curious what you
Starbucks.
guys think. Like, what percent of people who go to either Starbucks or Dunkin', like, what percent you think get like some sort of flavors?
I would say roughly 75% of all people our age are getting some sort of flavoring. If at the baseline,
Yeah.
sugar, Splenda, vanilla. I
Well,
think
you can't count.
No, that doesn't. I don't want to count
Vanilla
sugar.
counts.
I don't want to
Sugar
count
counts.
sugar.
So
I'm talking about different than just normal coffee flavor.
Well,
I have a good
I don't know if
story
it's
about
75% because
7%.
think about this: if you order a latte, if you order a cappuccino, if you order
who gets plain lattes?
a
Disgusting.
lot
two-
of people,
There's
a lot
two
of
people
do.
in this world. There's people that order plain lattes and people who are not serial killers.
Agreed.
That's it.
I almost worked at Starbucks. I know these numbers.
I worked at Dunkin' for 4 years.
We're talking about Starbucks. We're talking about the high-end coffee.
We're looping them together. We're taking them together.
Oh,
They both have
yeah,
flavors.
that is flavored. Yes, flavored.
So speaking, Jacob, you have nothing ever to apologize for. And also, Troy, I don't actually mean you're weird. Like if you however you drink your coffee, like
Let's not use hurtful words like weird.
But-
Austin, 5 minutes later. Don't be so weird about what you put in your coffee.
So after I run up 2 flights of stairs, I'm out of breath. But anyway, they sell those refreshers at Starbucks. Have you ever had those?
Of
So
course.
the mango dragon fruit refresher
Perfect.
is that is bliss for me. So I get
Yes.
the biggest one when the venti.
Okay.
I don't get Trenta, but I get the venti. But we were there and I got it, and it's like this purple drink. And I'm standing there, and this lady's staring at me, and she's like making comments to everyone that's working. I'm like, she's gonna say something. I better have something queued up for
Yeah.
when. And I'm like, just thinking of what to say. And she's like, "What is that you got?" And I was like, "Oh, it's a black coffee. You want some?" And and I just walked right by her. And Lydia was like, "No, it's a refresher." And she was like, "I've never seen a drink like that." And I was like, "All right, have a good one."
I do not need. See, here's my problem with Starbucks slander. People think that there's certain drinks that are gendered. They think
No.
that men cannot get frappuccinos or these pink refreshers. And I'm tired of it. Because you know what? They taste fucking good.
Yeah,
And I don't like any slanderous
thank
things
you.
about any drinks. I think the mango dragon fruit is
It's
perfect.
the best.
You add
drink they have.
lemonade. I don't get sugar in it
I
because it's a
don't
little
do
too much.
lemonade.
But you do lemonade, mango dragon fruit refresher. I sometimes add blackberries to mine.
Wow.
I know. So I think every drink on the menu is perfect. I think it's handcrafted. I think it's made to be good. Why are we not enjoying them? Why are we not allowing everyone to enjoy them?
And sexism.
And
Start
sexism
here.
in Starbucks.
In blended beverages. But I agree with you.
But
Also,
this
like,
includes
think about
hard
it.
drinks too.
Like, do you like lemonade?
Yes.
I like lemonade. Do you like alcohol?
whipped cream?
Do you like alcohol?
Yes.
So why can't I drink 24 Mike's Hard Lemonades?
You can. They're
Thank you.
good.
Thank you.
They're
This is
made
delicious.
All
good.
the power to you, Austin.
What, Jacob?
you have to drink
All the
Mike's
power
Hard.
to you.
Thank you.
You gotta drink Mike's Harder lemonade if you're a guy.
I'm a
No, I
beverage
like all of it.
person. I am a beverage person. I will probably prefer to drink just like 16 beverages a day besides eating. And I think that
That's not good.
why?
It's not food.
What about smoothies?
Isn't that what like
smoothie.
Tim Cook.
I don't know.
Anyway,
Or not
I
Tim
eat.
Cook,
I,
what was
it was a
Jobs?
joke.
Steve Jobs.
It was a joke.
Sammy's like 100 or 200 years ahead of us. She's basically living in like Wall-E right now.
Sammy
Molly's
drinks
a
Soylent,
robot.
That's it.
I think that
The people.
beverages
Oh,
are
yeah.
not should not be gendered.
The last thing
It's
I
not
want to
hot
say,
take, I'm just
I
saying,
agree with
it's
you,
facts.
Sammy. If we want to go off on a crazy rabbit hole,
Yeah.
looking at the absolute bonkers marketing they do on products for like men, like if you look at men's soap and deodorant, it's
Oh
like
my god.
Arctic freeze. You're gonna smell like pine trees and gasoline, brother.
And
Otherwise-
woman is like sweet
Yeah.
pea and
It's like-
lavender bliss, and you're
I
on
use
the moon.
women's body soap. I want to smell like Aloha coconut.
And I love men's scents.
Yeah.
Yes.
Stop oppressing us, Troy.
Props
I'm
to Old Spice because they've launched an entire.
Swagger.
Do you know
You're gonna
how
smell
many-
No,
like
no. Hold on.
Alpine breeze.
No,
brother.
in case you haven't paid attention,
Champion.
props to Old Spice because
Fiji, you're gonna smell
No,
like a whole
stop.
island, dude.
have you seen what Old Spice is?
Sport. You're gonna smell like sport.
Have you seen what their
Fresh powder.
Have
dude.
you seen what their campaign is?
Listen,
now?
put on fresh powder. Yeah, it's lavender. It's cool.
Yeah, it's like yes,
Lavender.
it's like all about like embracing
I hope the
the
name
feminine, smelling products.
Scents should not be gendered. Beverages should not be nothing should be gendered. What is
my
gender?
dog doesn't even have balls.
All right, we're not going to jump into this conversation.
What is gender?
We're not jumping in. Sorry. That's like a 3-hour podcast.
Can I just tell
What
you
is-
what gender
what
is
is-
not?
No.
What is-
Gender
we're
is
done.
not blended beverages.
Yup.
Gender is not the honey almond milk cold brew from Starbucks.
Jacob's like, I'm drinking beer, and I don't agree with any of this.
Jacob's like, when I want to get fancy, I put
Whoa,
some
whoa,
lemon in
whoa,
my
whoa.
water.
Frozen
Stop being
margaritas.
Texas, Jacob.
Frozen margaritas fucking slap.
Oh, they're the best from Chili's. They have the best ones.
Oh, should we go to
Best frozen
Chili's after
margarita in the
this?
world.
Go to Chili's.
Chili's.
Let's go to Chili's.
You can use the nice well tequila.
The, guy
The fake
scratched my
strawberry
esophagus
puree.
doing that.
All right, moving.
I'm only gonna talk like this.
We're
from now
moving on.
brother.
We're moving on. Final story. We'll keep this one nice, short and sweet because we're hitting our time limit here.
Nope.
We got to be off the clock for the next show to come in.
Nope. The ice
so-
house is always open.
There's interesting
is
metrics
just
coming out of the viewership
I can't wait to go to Starbucks.
compared to CNN to Fox News, especially during yesterday's riots inside the nation's
I can't be
capital.
serious now.
This was
Wait, do you want to? Never mind.
this was a
Can we take a break?
this
Wait,
was
I
a
thought you wanted to start this one. Start this one over. Start
no.
this
Let's start this one over. What did I say before we
Because
came on?
Austin was talking, I was talking. I feel bad.
Well, that's yeah. You should feel bad.
Well, I'm thinking about the music. Where are you
We'll
gonna
have to
cut
see.
it?
We'll have to see who's gonna be back on the podcast
Bow,
next week.
bow, bow, bow,
I don't play. Okay,
bow,
we're
bow,
moving on.
bow, bow, bow.
So viewership of CNN versus Fox News during the Capitol's riots. Just to throw out some numbers there, around from 2:30 to 6:30 Eastern. These are the network's average viewership: 9 million viewers for CNN, 6.1 million viewers for Fox News, and 5.6 million viewers for MSNBC. I can tell you where those extra 3 million people who are usually watching Fox News were. Some of them were out on the streets in DC. They were much closer on the scene.
Jeez,
Looking at the cherry
Troy.
blossom.
Some of them,
Throwing
or
bombs
it was.
in the
I'd love to
back.
see the viewership of OAN because I think they were very down because a lot of those people were probably rioting.
Screaming on their phone.
But yeah, this was the viewership. So what
It's
was
like, why
happening?
you don't see Batman and Bruce Wayne in the same room? It's like, yeah, there was no one watching Fox.
So
we know where they were.
So I'm wondering, is it possible? And I was interested when I was watching this happen at around 3-4 o'clock yesterday. Well, still at work, but I kind of 2 days ago, I should say, I was kind of losing my focus because what was happening was unprecedented.
Justin and Brian, are you watching this?
I was
Just admitted to
wondering.
losing focus.
I was wondering what was happening and how the coverage differed from CNN compared to Fox News. There were some obvious differences.
There's always-
CNN was much more loosely was saying domestic terrorism. You didn't really hear that being said on Fox News. There was a lot of differences in the way things were being phrased, in the way they identified the people who were at the riots, who were at the rallies, and then how extreme they were making it. Also, I thought it was interesting, the camera angles they were showing was very different. CNN was showing a lot more violent shots. They were consistently showing the loops of the breaking glass and the charging through, as well as the security officers holding guns pointed at the window. Fox News was showing some of these images as well. Not as frequent, not as often. It was just some key differences that you picked up if you watched them both. So I'm wondering if maybe viewership was lost for Fox News and maybe shifted over CNN just to see the other perspective. But it's interesting. I mean, Fox News had nearly 3 million less people watching it in this time frame. And these two networks have been competing for the past 4 years during this presidency.
I have hopes. I have hope. I have a theory that's a hope. I hope that people that watch Fox News watch it as entertainment and confirmation bias reasons. And when something that was really big and scary, they wanted news, real news. And don't get me wrong, network news is always going to have dashes of sensationalism in it. There's always going to be storytelling behind it. Like you were saying, they were showing more of the violence. That's on purpose. Like we can't deny that, but maybe it's because CNN is more trusted in moments like this to deliver actual news. But again, like I encourage anyone to get news from multiple sources and not just have a single source of news. So like listen to Can We Just Talk each week.
I will say Fox News was aggressive in how they covered the story, and this article posted by the LA Times.
Because they created the story.
They acknowledged the fact, they were the first to actually acknowledge the first death of the riots. They were the first to announce the death of the woman being shot.
I do also want to acknowledge that Fox News perpetrated a lot of the rhetoric that caused the violence.
Yes. Well,
so, like...
it's interesting how far off the deep end this has gone, because now even President Trump had started calling Fox News fake news, and his supporters have kind of jumped, his diehard supporters have started calling Fox News fake news, and
it's a cult.
They identify more with OAN, which is very, very far right and extremist. It's just interesting because similar, and we talked about this again. If you want more coverage on this, we put out the special episode, Chaos on the Capitol. But it's interesting. Jacob was on it. But Jacob was on it.
Wow.
It's interesting.
Wow.
We had full. It was Chris and my Zoom only allowed 4 people.
Wow, dude.
It was interesting because
we talk about it on Deep Fried Medicine. You should listen to that.
We've seen how the Republican Party has started to split. And now media that is consumed by the Republican followers, including Fox News and OAN, is now being split as well. And I will say, CNN had its most watched day in its 40-year history. They averaged 5.2 million viewers over 24 hours. Keep in mind, the use of cable is way down. So the fact that this is happening in 2021 is huge. I mean, cable viewership has been down consistently year after year for certain events, except for Super Bowl and stuff. Well, even that has gone down a little bit, but it's most viewership in 40 years, including all the election day coverage that we had this year, which was huge. But that's how astronomical of an event this was. And you have to believe some Trump supporters may have come over to help kind of get that viewership up. I mean, they had hit an all-time high. The viewership for election day was massive as well.
The cognitive dissonance that a lot of Trump supporters have been going through over the last couple months has to be really aggressive and extreme. And I would imagine there's a lot of changing of hearts, but it's just, I don't know. Could this be a good trend? Yeah, maybe. But at the same time, it's just like, who knows what's going to happen? Like, this rhetoric is dangerous. And like all these Republicans that fueled this fire, like, did you see the video that came out today? Lindsey Graham walking through the airport, and they were like chanting traitor at him. They were yelling him that he was like fake. They were telling him that like this is going to be the rest of his life. It's like, you need to reap what you sow. Like, you create, like, oh, newsflash, Frankenstein lost control of his monster. It's like, we've seen this happen before. And I hope those that were responsible for this are held accountable.
And you're right. I mean, some of the rhetoric that has been used and the ideas that have been passed along on places such as Fox News, one that was repeated heavily, if you follow along with Fox News or checked in, was the idea they kept mentioning how there's such a high disbelief and mistrust with the election results. Fox News kept throwing that idea around, the fact that millions and millions of Americans don't believe and don't trust the system in place. They don't trust what the election results were. And that was just one of the things that you saw a lot more of on Fox News. CNN had mentioned it, but the way they mentioned it was a lot different. They mentioned it that Senator Ted Cruz, Senator Hawley were saying, there's 39% of Americans don't believe. And they had just kind of thrown out the fact that who was saying it. The way Fox News was saying the same information, phrased differently, was millions of Americans don't trust the system that is in place. They don't believe the election results. Very different way to phrase it. CNN reported who had said what. Fox News had reported that millions of Americans don't believe. Very different, same exact information being told, just how it's being told is differently. It's just one different way you can see how these this same exact coverage is different just by a little perspective.
And if I could just jump in, I know I'm talking a lot this episode, but what was happening on Wednesday that they were trying to interrupt was that's something that happens every election. Like, that is not a momentous.
Well,
that
yes and no, because it happens every election, but
it's the counting of the electoral votes.
But the thing that doesn't happen very often is the objection to the counting of the electoral votes.
So, but here's the thing: one of the many reasons that United States of America is great and a beautiful country and should be filled with hope and optimism, even though we have a lot of problems, but that's okay. We're a young country. We are the United States of America, right? So like federal and local government is different. So local state government are in charge of all the elections. That's why every state has different processes. That's why there's, what are those things out in the Midwest that they have, the caucuses?
Yep.
Like every state has different laws. So if you have an issue with Arizona, you need to take that up with Arizona. I understand the ceremonial objection that certain QAnon and crazy people wanted to believe in that could actually do something. But let's just say, principle-wise, that what happened on Wednesday during that the Senate counting, was it the Senate or the Congress? I think it was the Senate counting.
Yeah.
If it was overturned at the federal level, what that does is it absolutely neuters and desecrates the powers that the states are supposed to have. There's supposed to be a separation between federal and state government. And I know there's another word for state government.
Yeah.
But like, if you change that, you're basically saying, hey, no matter what happens in your state, if we at the federal level don't like it, sucks for you. We're going to change it.
I want to just like briefly recap of what the process is and what they were covering, just for our viewers. And if you want, like I said, we talk about this for about 45 minutes to an hour, much more in depth, but pretty much what was happening. And you're right, this does happen every 4 years. It's not like this usually. What they do is they just certify the electoral college votes. The electoral college votes, as you're aware, are the point system that you see for the presidential election.
Crazy.
They certify that these electoral college votes are valid. Most of the time, there's no objections. Occasionally there is. Occasionally there's valid objections that actually get heard and they get debated, and we've seen it a few times over the past couple
2000
decades.
election.
Yes, and I don't know if you remember back in 2016, Vice President Biden at the time was listening to, or maybe it was 2012. It was either 2012 or 2016, but it was on 16.
I don't remember that year.
What'd I say?
Baby, you said 2016.
Okay, 2016. Thanks, throwing me off. But what was I saying? Yes.
That's what throws you off. We've been doing crazy stuff.
Vice President.
You say sex and Troy's like,
Vice President Biden. There was a senator who had brought up, we need to object to the counts voted in one state. He said, no, we're not doing this. If you're aware, the vice president is the president of the Senate. It's just how it works. He said, no, we are here to open the envelopes, to count the votes, and to certify it. There's not enough evidence here. There's no reason for us to believe that this is not true. And for that reason, we are not going to object. This doesn't happen very often. The objections is not a common thing. Yes, this process takes place every 4 years, but very rarely is there actual valid objections to the counting. And it should only appear if there is belief that there's some real tampering happening and there's proof that there was a problem with the system. As there was more than 60 cases in federal courts, it's proven that there is no proof that anything ill had happened in this election process completely. Therefore, all these ideas were thrown out and there was no reason to actually object. Now, that didn't stop certain senators. Like I said, Senator Hawley from Missouri, Senator Ted Cruz, they had brought up these objections. They had pushed for Arizona and Pennsylvania. There was plans to push for other states. They went late into the night. These objections were thrown out and they had settled that the election was certified. So that was what was happening when this had all been interrupted. Just wanted to provide that quick recap. Yeah. If you were wondering what
was a really quick recap.
It was like a few minutes, 3, 4. Well, it would have been shorter if you didn't butt in with what I had said and I had thrown off my train. But thrown off my train.
Joe's train.
Amtrak Joe's train.
Amtrak Joe
Coming full circle.
Yes. So that is what was happening. If you want more, we have a full episode explaining that. Don't worry, it's mostly Joey Block and Chris Sakonis explaining what happened. I tried to give some idea of perspective. But yeah, that's what they were objecting towards. And, you know, the news outlets had covered it a little differently. Fox News had given more validity to the objections. CNN had poked fun at
more validity to them. They stoked the fire. They raised the Frankenstein monster up into the lightning. Are you fucking kidding me? Gave more light to it.
Yes, they did. Not as much as OAN.
Okay, but still.
Because there were certain people who had backed off. Mitch McConnell had started to back off at the end, so they were like.
Mitch McConnell had his tail between his legs and is a spineless jellyfish that is a melting face of a puppet that got away from Jim Henson. Like there's nothing that Mitch McConnell can do to get back whatever evil he has done in this
How do you
world.
feel about Trump?
You know what I was thinking? You know what I was thinking about Mitch McConnell? I wish he looked meaner.
He looks like a turtle without a shell.
But it's kind of cute.
He looks like the devil.
He looks like he takes 10 minutes to eat one biscuit and he chews it only with his lips.
He just looks like a sad individual.
He looks like the devil.
I don't support Mitch McConnell. However, he looks sad.
He looks like the hidden devil.
Mitch McConnell is the outfit that the devil buys at Walmart when he comes to Earth. He's like, give me your cheapest thing. It's like Mitch McConnell and Jerry Jones.
It's weird to see how these certain people have flipped on their rhetoric of what is surrounding the election, just because a lot of people have decided, all right, it's time to jump ship at different times. So these people are all kind of coming in at different points.
Which is frustrating because it shouldn't be they should be representing the people that elected them, right? So they shouldn't be flipping. You should be elected on your principles, and if you can't stay true to your principles, but again, we're talking about American politicians. None of them have principles that they stick to, right? Whether you're left, right, or you're independent, like almost 99.9%, unless you're like Grandpa Bernie Sanders, who's just loving and just like main lines maple syrup every morning for breakfast, like you're flipping on your principles. Maple syrup and a little green maple syrup, if you know what I mean.
It's legal up there.
It is legal.
But you do a southern accent for Vermont.
That's the only accent I have. That and Philly.
Jacob, Sammy, final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I did have. Oh, you go first, Sammy. You go first.
So
she's new to this podcasting thing.
You asked both of us.
Jacob, Sammy.
Yeah, be a better moderator, Troy. What the hell is wrong with you?
You know what I will say? First of all, I'd like to pay homage to Richie Welbrock and sort of derail the conversation for a second. I will say, I do research on ants, a lot of ants. And I will say that if I used one source, only one, for my research papers, I would get fired. And I can't get fired because I don't get paid, but I would no longer be on this research cohort. So my call to action to our viewers and listeners is to, just change the channel.
That is way too on topic for what Richie Welbrock would say.
Look, have you ever seen the movie Die Hard?
That's more like it. No, he'd be like, it's funny you say that.
Well, so this is true.
But what does that mean for British Parliament?
This is in true Richie fashion because I'm getting interrupted. So I will say that my call to action to our listeners is to just change the channel once in a while. See what's going on the other side.
Yeah.
If you're left, right, libertarian, socialist, communist, whatever, you just see what's going on, get more news sources, and above all, cite your sources. Put them in a bibliography, and I would like an annotated bibliography, at least 500 words, on my desk about
Chicago or MLA.
I would like MLA, not Chicago. You can also do APA. Either one's fine. I'd like it on my desk by Friday. And if it's not on my desk by Friday, you're getting points deducted and
no coffee.
No coffee from Starbucks.
Jacob.
All right, I'll stick to my usual fashion and bring us back onto topic.
Jacob always goes after.
I miss Richie. This would have been a fun episode to have.
We'll test
what happened yesterday?
We'll test our listeners' memory. So you remember like 8 topics ago when we brought up this article that we were talking about? Austin actually had a really good theory. He said, I think that some of the Fox viewership said, when it's real news, I want to go to CNN. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along those lines. And I thought that's an interesting theory. I'd like to venture a theory of my own, maybe a little bit less optimistic though. But I think that people want to like what they like.
Yeah.
And my theory is that, some of the Fox viewership said, I don't think what I'm going to hear on Fox is what I'm going to like. I want to continue liking Fox. I'm going to flip it over to CNN because then when they say something that makes me mad, I can get mad at CNN.
Yeah.
Rather than having to try to face maybe some of the cognitive dissonance.
That's a good, Jacob, that's a good theory. And I would say to any of our listeners or viewers that want a deeper discussion about confirmation bias, they should check out Deep Fried Medicine, which is part of the Polar Media family. Stephen Rudden and I did a pretty in-depth look as just some normal Amtrak Joes looking at confirmation bias. And I think Stephen Rudden is like one of the smartest people I've ever met. And I thought he had some good takes on it. But that's basically what you're saying, Jacob, is like, you want to get mad. You want to go look at how stupid those other people are.
Yeah, it's going to do it for us here on Can We Just Talk.
What? Why are you so downtrodden?
No, it's good. We're just like at the longest episode of all time.
Yeah, because it's good.
I'm just wrapping it up.
Lord of the Rings was great. Look how long those were.
Exactly.
The Shire, bro.
So that's going to do it for us.
Mr. Frodo, come back.
That's enough for Can We Just Talk for this week. If you want more and you haven't listened to the special edition episode of Chaos in the Capitol, go check that out. It's available everywhere as well. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Make sure to check it out. Again, for myself, Troy D. Savino, Samantha Dolph, Austin D. Savino, and Jacob Berg.
I don't have a podcast, but if you really enjoy me on this podcast, you can follow me at sammy.doloff on Instagram.
You don't plug in personal Instagram.
That's my personal Instagram. If you like me on this podcast, please DM me and I will appear in more podcasts.
Sammy's on Cameo.
I'm not on Cameo.
Follow my dog at
ollie.the.rescue.collie
on Instagram. I post once every 4 months.
He posts. So that's going to do it for us here on Can We Just Talk. Thank you for listening. We got more content coming out soon. Again, Troy DeSavino, Sammy Dolph, Austin DeSavino, Jacob Berg. Make sure to stay tuned. More content coming out very soon.